Well, welcome everybody to the latest episode of the HR Tech Chat video podcast. With me today is a really special guest. We've had a lot of time in the green room talking about stuff in previous conversations as well. Marta Weinstock, who is Senior Director of Operations at Rutherford Investment Company, whose URL is Rutherford Investments, plural.com. So rutherfordinvestments.com. And we're here today to talk about her your experience with isolved, which has been very wide ranging and very interesting. I'm really looking forward to that. But welcome, Marta.
Hi,
Thank you
Brent.
for joining us. Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, absolutely. And like we always do on the podcast, just for our audience's sake, would you maybe just dive into your experience just a little bit, what brought you to where you are today professionally, this sort of thing, and then we'll dive right into the subject matter.
Great. Thanks so much, Brent, for having me today. I'm excited about this opportunity. My background is I've spent time in corporate and nonprofit and even in venture capital and software startup land. And throughout all of my roles, one consistent thread has been building business systems that create efficiencies for the organizations that I've been a part of.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? That one area where that comes in really handy is HR. I can tell you as an industry analyst, there's so many organizations that really need help in terms of sort of just tamping down, getting their operational HR under control, and that's a big part of the story today. And I understand that when you joined Rutherford Investment Company, um, that isolved was in place, but only for payroll essentially, and the rest of HR was kind of I like to call it the paperlithic era, the Stone Age of HR, where there really wasn't much in place. Maybe they didn't have Excel spreadsheets in the Stone Age, but that's kind of the Stone Age for HR today. Maybe you could kind of share with our audience what that was like and how you kind of figured out, okay, isolved's in place for payroll. There might be a there. How do we move forward?
Yeah, no, that's great. A great question. Really, when I started with Rutherford, I was looking at we have two different divisions of the company, and looking at where they were spending their time and what they needed help with, right? What the managing directors needed support with. And at the same time, I was also chartered to implement a 401k plan to become compliant in California by last June. And so we had our payroll, we had our time system through isolved, and we started exploring options for our 401k implementation. And we looked at a few different options, and when I discovered that isolved had their 401k plan set up with so it could be automated with our payroll, we explored that option, and it really did uncover some other opportunity for us to look at streamlining other business processes, other HR business processes. So we were looking at what's the right approach for all of this, and how can we create organized processes, standardized procedures, documentation, storage of employee files. How can we really start to innovate in our HR processes? So
Yeah, it is a huge task. By the way, I hear the words "to be compliant in California" and my mouth gets dry, I mean, I can only
yeah.
imagine. There's only a few other places in the country, I think, where that is that level of sort of heart attack inducing kind of of a challenge.
Yeah.
So I understand that there was a lot of planning involved, and in speaking with you previously about this, what I recall, what comes to mind, or what I recall here is that um, you guys are very methodical about this in terms of the amount of time that you were, sort of, well, that let's put it this way, the inefficiencies that were holding you back
Mhm.
in HR and what you wanted to achieve. And I know that iSolve came in and helped you to kind of understand how
Mhm.
to build out and expand the footprint of their technology people cloud, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about that first,
Mhm.
and then maybe we can talk about some of their HR services, which I know you had some real success with.
Yeah, no, that's great. We started really, like you said, very methodical. We had an HR brainstorm Excel sheet where we were tracking all of our HR functions and who was in charge of them and how much time each one of those were taking, right? And how could we really lift this off out of our Dropbox and our Google Drive and off of the email threads and where all the documents, the PDFs get lost, right, in the paperless era, and how could we streamline these? And we worked with iSolve to understand again which module would be supportive of each business function and how could we, because we didn't really know, right? The iSolved, we started off with 401k, and as we explored, some of our iSolved people heroes on the inside of iSolved were showing us um, actually this was part of the onboarding module, and this is part of the managed benefit module, and this is part of the applicant tracking module. And so we really did start with this methodical kind of staged uh, understanding of our current HR processes from each division, and looked
Mm,
at what would benefit both divisions individually, but then what would benefit the company as a whole. What could we build under a consistent umbrella, and really improve the employee experience of our company?
mm.
The whether it's the files or the efficiencies of their self-service access, or signing up for managed benefits when during a new hire process. It all looked like it could be under one umbrella for us. And so we worked with also the HR services to streamline our handbook, right? Our
Oh
handbook was,
yeah.
we had like two different versions of our handbook, and we've been trying to update it previously, and it just kind of got lost. Like the project just kind of dropped, as time, other things take priority, right? When HR
Mm.
sometimes gets a little shuffled to the side, it's cumbersome, right? It can be very cumbersome. We looked at our leave of absence policies, we looked at our PTO policies, all of our internal policies, and again, how to build this in a consistent way that could be, you can get the employee sign off on their handbook through the onboarding module, right? They
Oh,
can
okay.
sign and acknowledge that. So um, again, like I don't I we looked at it as a team. We built it out. The HR services helped us to map out our employee journey, and
Mm.
then we strategically just started implementing. We put a plan in place to stage the development of our iSolve modules, and started with our 401k and our open enrollment. Then we went to manage benefits and onboarding, offboarding, applicant tracking, performance management, and we've now implemented and scaled this beautiful tech system for Rutherford. So we did it as a team together.
Yeah, it is a great story of collaboration and also a really good example of how, if you're a, well, let me ask you, how many employees does Rutherford have around?
We have with both divisions of the company, we have about 87 employees, and
Okay. Yeah.
one of the divisions has more than half part-time employees. So we have a mix of full-time and part-time in our company.
Yeah. It's really interesting, that is definitely characterizable as a small company, right?
Mhm.
And just being out there in the wild as somebody is at on the outside looking in, it might seem that, oh, well, a small company doesn't have, too much complexity when it comes to HR, human capital management. Well, hogwash, right? I mean, there's there's so much going on, and that's what I'm really trying to get at here. Is it's such a great example of, a small company having significant complexities in the management of the employment of its people, and really needing to bring order to that, with
Mhm.
and being able to do so under the aegis of one HR HCM suite, this in this
Mhm.
instance
Mhm.
isolved. So that to me is a really, really big takeaway for this. Another is, and maybe we could get to it in a moment here. um, so I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of advanced warning on my next question after this one. The next one after this, I'd love to talk about the employee experience a little bit more with you.
Mhm.
But first, I understand that that isolved HR services arm helped you with your first open enrollment, using isolved, and I believe that was last summer.
Mhm.
What was that like?
Well, it was challenging. It was challenging. We currently we were working with a broker who had been working with us for a long time, and it was again, a really a long-term relationship. And so we involved him to help us. We had also an HR consultant that we had been working with longer term for the company, and they helped to really map out how to work with isolved and what information they would need. And a lot of it was, again, it was in paper forms, right? And
Mm,
so we had to upload templates, and the HR services team, the isolved HR services team, really jumped in where we didn't know what to do, helped to take everything from the paper and put it into the system, right? We leaned on them to guide us through uh, the step work of, okay, here's how we're going to lift off open enrollment. And then this year, when we went through our open enrollment process, we definitely still had a few of the steps that we needed to go through, and it was easier. And I now know, after having 2 years under our belt with iSolved and with the open enrollment, it takes a lot to manage all of those pieces and to get all of the plan data. And we again, like you said, we're a small company, but we have complicated benefit plans even, and how much the employer contributes for the different divisions, and how much the employee contributes for each division, and how to stage those benefit rates, in iSolved, which it became easier, and it's getting easier again. But I think that the HR services team really did help us to at least take those steps forward that we were, I don't know, we were just not, we didn't know how to do that, right? They
mm.
helped us.
Well, that's great. I just know from my perch as an industry analyst, speaking with folks like you out there in the wild, HR and other business leaders, right? Um, when we're working on reports that we've interviewed folks like you in, right? We know not to schedule sort of publishing those, or necessarily expecting to hear back from people when it's open enrollment season. we know that that's like, okay, there everybody's going to be basically AWOL for about a month and a half, 2 months. And that's just the name of the game. This When you don't have a good system in place,
Mhm.
and a good partner
Mhm.
to make open enrollment happen, it takes up all of HR's time. Um, And so you're, in what you characterize here, it's in no way surprising to me. And and it's really interesting. isolved's DNA, sort of some of its original DNA is and this is a little bit of a of an offshoot of it, but in Cobra, helping companies sort of comply with Cobra and this kind of stuff. So it's not surprising to me at all. At another level too, that isolved is so good at helping companies, navigate that open enrollment process. And not for not, but bring up the California compliance thing again, right?
Yes.
I, I worked for a company that was based in California, headquartered in California. I worked from home, but there were still some issue in the past, and there were still some issues that affected me, and affected the types of plans that were available and all this kind of stuff. So I understand completely that it's I don't understand the granularities or the details.
Yeah.
Someday maybe I'll teach myself them, maybe not. But in any event, there's a lot to navigate there. It's really interesting. So it's a really, if your vendor, a solution provider is capable of doing that, they're definitely a keeper, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even on the back end, I mean, the way that I solved, and now it's the managed benefits group, right? It's not just HR services, it's the managed benefits group. The way they connect to the back end of all of our carriers, and we download our plan documents and upload them into isolved, and there are so many small details that as a single HR department like I don't know all those details, and I definitely rely on isolved to help, to let me know what I need to download, to what I need to upload, how do we create this template, how do we double check and triple check all the rate data is
Mm.
correct, and then how do we run reports? I mean, ultimately it's the auditing and reporting of all of the employee data, whether it's managed benefits or onboarding, offboarding, new hires, right? All of the reporting that sometimes is the most important for small companies, right? To put your arms around what's actually what can be reported on, what needs to be reported on.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. It's a huge sort of question mark. What's important, what isn't, and being able to have those sort of I think prefabricated reports, or that's not the word that's used. That's not the industry term. It's escaping me at the moment. But having these reports that are that are pre-made,
Mhm.
to be able to just get going right away. It's a huge time saver. A and B, it really helps you sort of understand what's happening with your workforce. Maybe this is a good segue, because you mentioned the employee experience and improving it earlier in this conversation, and I want to get back to that. How would you say that that this expanding relationship with isolved has helped with that, the employee experience?
I would say that we now have a streamlined approach to a process that seemed very manual, and again, just not stored all in one place, right?
Mm.
As a new employee now walking through the system, the first step is, even before the person becomes an employee, just attracting the right talent, right, has become even easier than it was before. I mean, I know I'm going to sound like an isolved salesperson here, but we were posting some of our jobs on just single job boards, and now through the attract and hire, we create a job template, we create a job posting, and it can go out to up to 50 job boards, right, versus just one or two. And so, and we can choose which ones that goes out to, right? And we can even choose to boost to the job ad if we need to. And so working on the front end with attract and hire really has, I think we've doubled, tripled. I mean, I don't have a report on this, but I think we've doubled or tripled the the number of candidates and even the quality of the candidates has improved on the front end for the jobs. And we're hiring, some of our positions are maintenance techs and, property managers. So it's not that, they're not jobs that everyone's out there, searching for every day. They're very specific in their job responsibilities. So on the front end, we're attracting better talent. We're moving them through the system with all of our offer letters and our employee agreements, and anything that we need them to sign is on the front end. And I would say having that for the beginning of an employee experience, and then walking them through the onboarding, and they complete all of their I-9 and W-4 and all of their, direct deposit, and, they sign their employee, they receive their employee handbook and sign their acknowledgement through the system. And, again, none of those are stored in some other Dropbox or Google Drive any longer. Those are now part of this streamlined employee process. They can change their direct deposit on their own in their employee self-service portal, and they just walk through, they add their time, they learn how to, download the isolved app on their phone and, put their time in. And, when it comes to any other updates on their employee information, their how, they're living, all of those things they can change on their own. And then really it's just from there going through the managed benefits and the open enrollment annually. And we just implemented our performance management, which is our review module. Actually, funny enough, you're gonna like this, Brent, we we went through our second open enrollment cycle at the same time I was implementing the performance management.
Wow.
So we doubled up, and I'm like, when you said open enrollment can, it's like I was like, yes, it was definitely a very interesting spring here in California.
Hey, let's do
Um,
two things at once.
let's see. Well, let's, keep the plate spinning, right? Um, so yeah, and I mean, I think that that's really when you look into then having the performance management system implemented and having all of their job description and giving them a comprehensive review that's then linked to their employee file. You've got the whole employee experience, the whole journey. It's all documented, it's organized. We can pull it up. We can, if we want to do 360 reviews and have peer reviews added, now we've got even that data added to that. You get full visibility into the employee experience. And now when I look at the HCM maturity chart that isolved has published, and that it was newer to me, that when you think about when I started, that we were kind of at the basic and the implemented part of their graph, and then now we've built out the automation, which is in the middle of their graph, and they've got development and engagement at the top end of their graph. And that's really where I see us going, as we've now got this automation, right, that has lifted us off in an HR department, right? And
Yeah.
then now we're looking for development and engagement, and how do we continue that employee experience for Rutherford employees.
Yeah, you read my mind. I was about to mention the HCM maturity model and how you're sort of moving along at a brisk pace, which is great. From that sort of just getting to solving for basic, which is a great milestone in and of itself, but moving into that, becoming eventually a learning organization, and which I understand that you're looking into the learning piece of the puzzle now, recalling from our previous conversations. You mentioned the journey, like the employee journey. And that's a great way of putting it. To me, it seems like there are no real, annoying hiccups. It's smooth. There's no real surprises. That just that employee experience is smoother now. It's not, clunky or fits and starts, and a lot of this stuff that can be sort of an intrusion on the workday is now in the background running like the the hum of the refrigerator in the background, which is great. Um, and that people often they think about improving the employee experience. They think it has to be sort of broad or sort of grand overtures, or these sorts of things. But it doesn't have to be. It can be just fixing all the little things, and that can have a huge sort of cumulative aggregate effect impact on the employee experience. You saved a lot of time. I know that. Do you want to tell the
Sure.
viewers, our audience? I mean, it's a lot of time. Get ready.
Yeah, that's so from where we started with our HR brainstorm and kind of documenting and again just looking at each level of methodically looking at how much time somebody was spending on whatever component of the HR process. I took that same spreadsheet and I looked at the modules that we implemented and kind of looked at the time and very conservatively estimated how much time the implementing this full suite of isolved modules has saved us. And again, it's been like less than a year of that we've implemented all this, so very brisk pace. I have estimated that it's been about 60 days of manpower, which is like 480 hours. So I think that's just from implementing all of our modules so far and creating a user-friendly employee experience. And I don't even think that saves all the emails and all the tracking of this, this PDF or finding that. And so yeah, it's been about 480 hours is what I'm
Wow.
estimating.
Yeah. 40 divided by 2 is 240. What? Maybe it's another 240 on top of that. Who knows with the emails or whatever. Yeah. I mean, that's just phenomenal. And I know you're just beginning to experience this, and so you have all this newfound time, and looking at this in sort of a conventional accounting spreadsheet, we would say, oh well, that's a newfound productivity,
Mhm,
and then we just leave it at that.
mhm,
But there's sort of a cornucopia of things that HCM focused people at Rutherford can now do or start to think about doing, uh, to
mhm,
be to be more productive for the organization, or to be reach higher levels of productivity, to be strategic in vis-a-vis the workforce
mhm,
now, which is really exciting.
mhm,
Um, and and one of those being kind of looking toward the learning, and this kind of like the learning component from isolved, these sorts of things.
mhm.
Um, um, do you have any other sort of ideas that you're mulling now that with all this newfound time to maybe do with the workforce?
Well, I think, again, that's a great point, just the amount of productivity that we've saved. And I think that when I started in my role, I was looking at how to help the managing directors of these divisions um, really take things off their plate that were time consuming for them so that they can manage their divisions. They were handling a lot of this HR work on their own or with their direct operations support. And so I feel like for them, my goal is to give them back some of their day, right? And so that they, as managing directors, it can ease their mind. And if they have a leave of absence issue, if they have a workers' comp issue, if they have any of these HR issues that they don't need to manage them any longer, and that I can build back efficiency into their day. As far as productivity for the employees and productivity for us as a company, I think that I'd really like to start looking at the predictive people analytics and looking at some of the deeper analysis of how we can engage our employees, how we can retain our employees, how can we build in other aspects of the employee journey and developing their learning that
Mhm.
that will benefit Rutherford, right? And make it a better employee experience. And maybe
Yeah,
have a few employee events along the more employee events along the way too.
yeah, absolutely. Uh, Helping them to see it as Rutherford as a place where they can grow their careers. Yeah,
Mhm.
because they have the tools at their disposal to do so. Uh, Really great stuff. This is looking at the time here, and we could go on for another hour, I think. But
Yeah.
this has been great. Thank you so much, Marta, for joining us for the podcast. Really exciting, uplifting, inspirational story you have.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks to 360 Insights.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Have a
Good.
good one.
And go
Oh
people's heroes, right? I
yeah,
mean,
oh yeah, the
that's
people's
that's
heroes. I
the
love the
people
people.
heroes community is just amazing. isolved is really they're putting something very wonderful together.
Well, maybe we'll have you back to talk about that at some point.
Good. All right. Thanks so
Absolutely.
much. Mm.
Thank you.